Call the city council meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Here.
Whitman.
Here.
Echoangeli.
Here.
Vining.
Here.
Germaini.
Here.
Lamore.
Here.
Mayor Clark.
Present. I ask we all please rise for the invocation. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Guide us in our deliberations this evening. Let us continue to work with each other to make our city a place we are proud to call home.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is approval of regular agenda.
Thank you.
I would like to make a change to the agenda and remove item 3362 until the December 20th meeting.
Second. There are two of them. So there's a motion by Councilman Michelangelo, supported by Councilwoman Vining, on item 3362, the recognition be postponed until the December 20th city council meeting. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder.
Yes.
Whitman. Echoangeli.
Yes.
Vining.
Yes.
Germaini.
Yes.
Lamore.
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is the consent agenda, and for approval of payments to vendors, the amount should read $1,006,754.96, 1006754.96.
Thank you. Are there any items on the consent agenda that council wishes to have pulled for further discussion? Any items on the consent agenda? Seeing none, are there any items on the consent agenda those present here this evening wish to have pulled for further discussion? Any items on the consent agenda? Seeing none, a motion would be in order.
Your Honor,
Councilman
I would make a motion that all items on the consent agenda be accepted, placed on file, recommendations carried out, and resolutions adopted.
Second.
There's a motion by Councilman Felder, supported by Councilman Lamore, that all items on the consent agenda be accepted, placed on file, recommendations carried out, and resolutions adopted. Clerk, please call the roll.
Felder.
Yes.
Whitman.
Yes.
Echoangeli.
Yes.
Vining.
Yes.
Germaini.
Yes.
Lamore.
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is under presentations, item 3375, public hearing for proposed ordinance 21-013.
Thank you. At this time, we'll start a public hearing. Open the public hearing for item 3375. It's a public hearing regarding proposed ordinance 21-013 related to section 114.13, chapter 114, the purchasing and contracts regarding responsible bidder ordinance. Any comments from those present here this evening regarding this public hearing? Any comments from those present? Seeing none, unless there's any comments from council for the public hearing. Close the public hearing. And clerk, next item, please.
The next item is under council action, proposed ordinance 21-013, an ordinance to amend section 114-13 of chapter 114, purchasing and contracts of the Code of the City of Monroe, responsible bidder ordinance.
Thank you. I'll see if Mr. Sell, Assistant City Manager, if there's any introductions. I know we had work sessions and Personnel Committee meeting on this.
Yeah, as you said, it was discussed at the October 18th work session, and actually 3 of you, mayor or council members, are on the ad hoc committee that brought this forth for adoption tonight. So I'm going to leave it at that. There's a lot to it, so I'm not going to do a full review of it, but you can take questions and go from there with it.
Thank you. I'll see if there's a motion to start for any conversation.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion that we move the proposed ordinance 21-013, an ordinance to amend section 114-13 of chapter 114, purchasing and contracts of the city code, be placed on the floor for its final reading.
One second, please. There's a motion by Councilman Michelangelo, supported by Councilman Felder, on item 3364, the proposed ordinance 21-013. Let's see if there's any final comments. Councilman Alcc, please.
I mean, I just, Mr. Sell was correct. Just, the committee met 3 or 4 times, and the committee was composed of the mayor, Councilman Felder, Patrick Lewis, Vince Pastu, Matt Buds, and myself. And I think overall, we started with a rather long ordinance, and we really brought it down to where it's very simplified. And I know if Mr. Lewis was here, he would tell you that it's something that's very manageable for him. And he, as a result of this, he's going to include all of the general provisions in the ordinance into the general provisions of the contracts that will be let in the future. So it kind of was a seamless process that we went through, and I think everybody on the committee was very satisfied with the end result.
Thank you.
I think that's a
Councilman
pretty good
Fel-
summary.
Okay.
I think,
Yep.
Mayor.
Councilman Felder, any comments? I
Felder?
know your participation. We had some good dialogue and got to what was being presented.
Yeah, certainly. I just want to say that I was truly shocked at our ability to move this quickly through the process. We had a lot of meetings in a rather compressed amount of time. Usually these things are measured in months, and I think that administration saw this as a priority. From the view of council, and so really moved on it, and they made it happen, and that was impressive. So thank you to the administration for facilitating that. Certainly, I know politics is the art of the possible, and here there was a certain amount of pragmatism instilled in the process of making the policy. I know that there were a lot of discussions that were had. There were some points of, hey, I wanted this here, I wanted this there, but I think that we all ended up with a piece of legislation that we can really live with, and I think that will benefit the city and its residents. So thank you, Your Honor. And
Thanks,
thank you for
Councilman.
John
That's
for
a final
introducing me.
comment in case there's others from the council if they have any questions. But, the process did go quickly, but yet it was a lot of dialogue and discussion. Sometimes got down to words, and I think just reading it over and over, you picked out that, a particular portion might need to be just modified a bit. But being, as it says, a responsible bidder ordinance, not only looking out in the city and cost and taking bids, but it's also how we receiving these bids, and where's the employment? What is the makeup of what we're looking to meet, not only the needs of the council, but of our community as well? And there's many criteria in there that the point system, I think that is while it first may appear a little more tasking for some, I think that you read through it, it's much they probably already submit maybe in a different fashion, but it will also allow us to have responsible bidders for a time frame of a year that are accessible and usable. This past year, we had 14 projects, and we, as the council, had a capital improvements session here just a couple weeks ago, and we're looking at very similar amount of projects this year. So there's plenty of work available, and having this process, we hope will get us even further out of the gate sooner, and to get projects as many as possible done throughout the year. So that's my comments. And I thank everybody that served on the ad hoc committee, but also the council members that shared their input as we went along. So any other comments? Seeing no others, there's a motion and a second. A motion from Councilman Alcc, supported by Councilman Felder on 3364 proposed ordinance 21-013. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder? Yes. Whitman? Alcc?
Yes.
Vining? Yes. Germaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes.
Ordinance 21-13, Chapter 114, Purchasing and Contracts. An ordinance to amend Section 114-13 of Chapter 114, Purchasing and Contracts of the Code of the City of Monroe. The City of Monroe ordains.
Shall this ordinance pass?
Councilperson Felder?
Yes.
Whitman? Yes. Alcc? Yes. Vining? Yes. Germaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is item 3358, Amended Opportunity Center at Alcc Funding and Lease Agreement with Mcop.
Mr. Sell.
Thank you, Mayor. This is one of the items that was carried forward from the last meeting. We've had a lease and funding agreement in place with MCOP for the operation of the Opportunity Center, and this is simply amending both of those. It would extend the lease through September 30th of 2024. As far as funding goes, we had started out at a funding amount of $156,000, and last summer we added $12,000 for the labor park summer programming. That will continue. We are recommending that $8,000 be added to pay for the water that is used at the labor park splash pad. There would be an additional $6,000 for nutrition and education programming around the community gardens. And then there's also a recommendation that MCOP administer the citywide summer tot lot program. So $25,000 would be added to cover that program, and those funds would be redirected from the recreation department budget. The only new funding here is the $14,000 for the water, excuse me, and the nutrition and education programming. And part of the recommendation is to authorize the $14,000 to be transferred from general fund contingency. So that is the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Sell. Councilman Michelangelo.
Mr. Sell, is the water for the splash park tied into the utilities at the ALCC?
Yes, my understanding is they all go through the same meter. Yes,
They all work on the same meter, so that's why we're contributing the funds.
correct.
Okay. Because I was looking at this saying, well, it's a city park. It's our splash pad. Why are they paying for it? But it's because they're tied in?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Thank you. Your Honor, I'll make a motion that we approve an amended lease agreement dated back to October 1, 2021 for an additional 3 years through September 30th, 2024, and approve a total funding allocation of $207,000 per the outline. And further approve the finance director to transfer $14,000 from the general fund contingency for additional funded items. So noted.
Second.
There's a motion by Councilman Michelangelo, Councilman Felder, supported. I know that Stephanie Kazierzak's here. Thank you for being here. I think it's, I appreciate, before we take the vote, the conversations that led up to this and understanding of the usage, but also not just the ask, but how we get there to make the service through the Opportunity Center, but also the kind of the campus that's developing there as well. So, Councilman?
The one comment I have, because, we went through a fairly difficult process on terminating the lease agreement with the former ALCC nonprofit board, and it was primarily because of non-performance. In this case, because MCOP provides such an excellent performance in bringing new programs down to the Opportunity Center, at least from my seat, it's very easy to approve the additional costs for the programs that they want, because we see the benefit that MCOP brings to the facility. And I'm actually very happy that MCOP is going to undertake our citywide tot lot program too, because I think that's going to actually, based on their performance, I'm sure that next summer we're going to see that program take off as well. So Merry Christmas.
I guess I'll make a follow-up comment, because that was on our fact sheet there, and it talks about the 2 years now that we've been in this relationship with MCOP and the Opportunity Center, but the quarterly reports that we talked, I think, at the last time that those were presented, really kind of demonstrates, as it says in the fact sheet, the successful increase in the programs, but also look to continue to broaden our relationships and partnerships within the community there as well. So that's I appreciate the information on the fact sheet as well. There's no other comments. There is a motion by Councilman Michelangelo, supported by Councilman Felder, regarding 3358, amend the Opportunity Center ALCC funding and lease agreement with MCOP. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder?
Yes.
Whitman? Yes. Michelangelo?
Yes.
Biden?
Yes.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is 3369, proposal for architectural services at 201 West Front Street.
Mr. Sell?
Mark Cochran to introduce this one.
Thank you. Mark?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council. Mark Cochran, Assistant to the City Manager and Economic Development Director.
As you know, we purchased the former Whistle Stop Bar and the adjacent 2 vacant properties on West Front Street earlier this year for the purposes of facilitating a successful redevelopment of the property. It did have some environmental issues that the city was able to tap into resources that were available to the city that may not be available to private developers to remediate and address those issues. And so the idea behind the purchase was to prepare it for redevelopment and find a tenant or a business to locate in the site to launch their business and then eventually sell it to them once they've had a chance to get their business off the ground and procure the capital necessary to take care of the facility. And so we met with both Synecdoche, I always struggle saying their name, but Synecdoche Architectural Services out of Ann Arbor, as well as a potential client or tenant with the building a couple weeks ago to do a site visit, and we received a pretty favorable proposal. I will say the reason we use an architectural firm out of Ann Arbor is because all the ones that we contacted locally had a lot of work on their plate, particularly Kohler Architects, who are doing a lot of bond work with Monroe Public Schools, and so they had referred us to a few different firms, and this one we were very comfortable with. And so the next steps would be to work with Synecdoche to develop a cost estimate to basically white box the building, address some of the challenges for redevelopment, to get it in a basic state that would make it successful for a business to come in, and then personalize it for their needs. We are talking to a restaurant operator who would like to operate a restaurant at the site, and so they would be responsible for actually customizing it for their needs in terms of kitchen equipment and other things. But we would do things like some of the initial architectural needs on the inside with HVAC services, leveling out the floor, relocating some of the kitchen and the bathroom services to make it more feasible for customers, and some of those preliminary design work that would be necessary for them to basically just step in, open a business, and then eventually, once they get off the ground, get more capital, then they would buy it from the city and we would be made whole. So tonight's proposal is to kick off that process.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions or comments from Mark? Yes, Councilwoman Viney.
Is this process something that we plan to do in other areas of the city? Is
Yeah.
this in an opportunity zone or some place like that that would have made us do it there?
Yeah, this one's not in an opportunity zone. We had nominated the downtown as an opportunity zone, but it didn't get selected by the federal government. But it is part of the DDA in the Central Business District. But
Councilman Michelangelo?
It's also a historically significant building.
yeah,
And the other comment I would make is that, based on what Councilman Vining has just said, I think in the future, this is the template that the city should use to actually encourage downtown revitalization. I think the city should get involved in buying the buildings that become available, bringing them up to code, white boxing them, and then turning around and recruiting the businesses that we need downtown. And then, like you said, once they're up and running, then turn around and sell it to the tenant.
yeah. This way, they don't have to expend all their capital out front in terms of the architectural services. They can put it into the needs of their business and then get off the ground. This one was one that we took a look at as a priority because of its unique design and character. There's a lot of potential with the site. It does have an interesting layout in the front, as well as it's a key property leading into the downtown in the Central Business District as well. And, you know, I'll say I know there's a lot of rumors out there that the city's going to demolish it. We don't have any plans to demolish the property. It's got the character that we'd like to preserve as well. So keeping the facade generally intact and some of those things are the goals with this site, given its unique character.
Councilman Lamore?
Just like to make a motion, Your Honor.
Okay, I'll go ahead and I'll save my comment for after. Go ahead. Motion.
Make a motion to approve a proposal from Synecdoche Design Studio for professional architectural services at 201 West Front Street in an amount not to exceed $35,000, and authorize the city manager or his designee to execute the necessary documents on behalf of the city of Monroe.
Motion by Councilman Lamore, supported by Councilwoman Germaine on item 3369, proposal for architectural services at 201 West Front Street. Just a brief comment, Councilman Michelangelo, I agree. I think that, we're at the point now with the buildings that are remaining that it's going to take some initiative from the city to move those forward. There was somebody long ago that was interested in that building, and as soon as they stepped in and realized there was, you're going to need a brownfield plan, there's going to be some remediation, you might take some grant funding to do this. And they said, we just want to make sandwiches and sell soup. And so you realize that you lose the opportunities. And I think also the Downtown Development Authority is moving in that direction as well, and it has over the past year. Actually, they were the ones that first put down a hold to purchase, just to hold the property, knowing that as we work through that, the city would be the better location because of the association to, whether it be to get grant funding and other funding for the brownfield redevelopment and a plan for that and how we'd market that. So I agree, Councilman. I think as we look at the downtown, as I say, the few buildings that are left, is how do we kind of step into them in a favorable sense to turn about like this as it's presented. So there is a motion from Councilwoman Moore, supported by Councilwoman Germaine. As stated, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder?
Yes.
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 Vining? Germaine?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Next item, please.
The next item is item 3374, proposed ordinance 21-014, retirement system ordinance.
Mr. Sell?
Thank you, Mayor. This is the first reading for this ordinance. If you recall, when we went through bargaining with the COMIA groups and the Teamsters, they were all basically giving a same change to their retirement benefits, in that new hires go into a defined contribution plan, and members that are in what we call our hybrid plan had a couple of options, either to opt out of that plan or to receive a supplement into a DC defined contribution plan. And so this ordinance is basically taking what was approved in those bargaining agreements and rolling it into the city's ordinance now, but it's also putting the same benefit out there for non-union employees as well. And the last thing it does is it allows for the non-union employees that were eligible for the early retirement to be able to come back and work temporarily, kind of on a transitionary basis until their positions are filled full-time with new people. So that's the last part of this ordinance that allows that to happen as well.
Any questions from Mr. Sell? If not, a motion to be in order so we can move this forward for the first reading and set the public hearing.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion that the proposed ordinance 21-014, retirement system ordinance, an ordinance to amend Chapter 127, retirement system ordinance of the Code of the City of Monroe, be placed on the floor for its first reading and set the public hearing and second reading for Monday, December 20th, 2021.
Motion by Councilman Lamore, supported by Councilwoman Germaine on item 3374, the proposed ordinance 21-014, retirement system ordinance as presented. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder? Whitman? Michelangelo? Vining? Germaine? Lamore? Mayor Clark? Ordinance 21-014, Chapter 127, Retirement System Ordinance. An ordinance to amend Chapter 127, Retirement System Ordinance of the Code of the City of Monroe, Michigan.
Next item.
I have no other items.
So it's council comments. It is December, so Councilman Felder.
Thank you, Your Honor. I know since our last regular meeting, we did have an ARPA capital improvements meeting. I think that was there was a rigorous and lively discussion at that. I think it's an important discussion to have. I think there was about $65 million in capital improvements that were going into the city, that were going to, enhance, the livelihood of residents and make this and make the city of Monroe a place that we all want to live. So those are important discussions to have, and I invite the community to step up and provide their suggestions in accordance with that. So that's an important. We're going to have to continue working on that, and I would encourage community involvement as well. Thank you to Terry Davis for sitting down with me and going over how the city can better leverage its data and GIS programs to provide metrics in response to the policies that we all pass up here. Hopefully, we're going to have some actionable decisions come before us that are provided by our internal systems. I know that we as a council have seen value in these systems enough to invest in them in the past, and I certainly hope and believe that we will get a return on that investment. So just some other good things happening. I know the firefighters did a Thanksgiving meal as well on the 24th, so thank you to them. I was lucky enough, to go over and volunteer a couple hours with them. I think they must have done 700 or 800 meals. It's my wife's birthday since our last meeting as well. I guess one of the few benefits of this position is I get to call out my wife's birthday as a notable event in the community. So happy birthday, Jessica. I was also pleased to sit down with Governor Whitmer for a moment. She had the opportunity to come down to Monroe last week, and I was able to speak with her about some of the city's ongoing projects. And it's always nice to provide some visibility into all the good work that the city is doing. There was also a multitude of holiday events this last weekend, and many of our nonprofits were partnering together to put those on in the downtown, so I'm just grateful to them for doing so. That includes the Rotary Club, who invited me to speak at the museum, who was also partnering with the event, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for contacting me about that as well, and then the Historical Society as well. It's those sorts of events that are put on that contribute to the downtown that we're all trying to build and create, and we can't do it alone. It takes partners, so we're grateful to have them. I think that's everything. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councilwoman Whitman.
Congratulations to Jessica. And in the meantime, I became a great grandmother. So, yay and me, somebody finally made me great. So, but I'm very happy to be back. I'm very happy with the improvements that we're talking about and where the city is headed. So, with that, I am just happy today. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. It's great to see you. But great that you're with us today. Thank you.
It is.
Councilman Michelangeli.
Yeah, Your Honor. Thank you. I happen to have a meeting on November 24 with Patrick Lewis and with Vince Pastu, and neither one are here this evening. But one of the things that we talked about was it was in regards to reviewing a couple of professional service contracts I had some questions on. And one of the things I noticed, because over the last 3 months, we've had a lot of professional contracts that we've authorized. I mean, Manick and Smith, Jones and Henry, Spicer, Kohler, Fishbeck, probably there's a number that I'm forgetting. But the one thing I noticed was that we basically sign their contracts. We review them, but we sign their contracts. And I had suggested to Vince and Patrick that the city really needs to have its own professional service contract that we require our vendors to sign. So our contract is uniform. The notice procedures are uniform. The payment procedures are uniform. Because with each of these contracts, and then Vince and Patrick started talking about it, and they said, yeah, the notification procedures are different. There's different conflict resolution requirements. Some go to court, some go to arbitration. So it really standardizes everything if the city has its own professional service agreement that we require the vendors to sign. And that's not unusual. So if the city attorney needs some examples, feel free to contact me and I'll provide some, because we do work with municipalities, my private business, and it's not uncommon that we have to sign their contract that has their requirements in it as a function of doing business. So I think it just helps streamline administration on our end. So that's the comment I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the comments. I look forward to seeing that as it comes forward, to see how it looks at our past ones, but also as we move forward. So thank you. Councilwoman Viney.
Yes, Your Honor. So we all received a letter from a resident. This is the second time she's emailed us. They've emailed us regarding the city considering doing hybrid meetings, meaning Zoom and in person, due to the increase with the pandemic that we're going through right now. And I was just curious, I don't know how we would do that. If that's something we had discussed, the administration had discussed or considered.
Well, we currently are not under a state of emergency. That comes from the mayor's announcement. That's how we got to the virtual in-person or virtual meetings and Zoom. I think that I'm looking at our city attorney. There's some discussion of the state whether there's hybrid or not, when it can be. At this point, not I guess, prepared to say a state of emergency for the city, as we've done in the past. The state's not presented that as well. But I don't know if there's maybe from a legal side what, the options and opportunities to have hybrid meetings or not. I think we were making precautions and items here within the chambers to make it acceptable for those to attend. But I'll see if there's any comments from Ms. O'Brien. Yeah. So, and I know that there may be some that are doing hybrid meetings. I've received a couple locations that are there, but I guess it's something the council can discuss further if they have an interest to do that. But it wouldn't be under the state of emergency. Then we'd have to come up with the way in which that would be done. So that's something we can have a conversation with the manager and city attorney.
Also, congratulations to firefighter Smiley on his recommendation from the Kiwanis. Who is a great firefighter and asset to the city. And that's all I have today, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we had that on our previous agenda as well. It's just some logistic things that have changed that. So I'm certain he'll be at the next meeting that we can recognize him in person and hear about the Kiwanis and their nomination and his being selected. Councilwoman Germaini.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Mark Cochran, for all the work you did to plot out all these lots. I know that was a lot of work for you and the city administration that worked with you. And also, it's a pleasure to approve the leasing agreement and the funding for the Opportunity Center at the Alcc. And how proud I think all of us are of the leadership down at the Opportunity Center and the great things that are happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Lamore.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Mark, and your staff for your work on the city property inventory. Not only does it bring forth good ideas, but it opens the door for new ideas, I believe. So there's a lot of work on us to get going on there. So thank you for that. Once again, thank you, the MCOP, for being a good partner with us. Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate your help here. On another note, DTE had another 2 outages recently. I know I'm kind of harping on this quite a bit, but I would really like to have an in-depth conversation with some of their higher-ups and their staff and possibly our staff to see how we can improve the infrastructure and, with permanent changes and upgrades, not just tree trimming. And I think that's something we need to ask them to come forth here and work together with our DPS and our public utilities and see what we can do to help them or how they can enhance their putting forth power to everybody's house without losing it. That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll make sure that Mr. Selick has writing notes, but I'm sure he'll have the conversation with Mr. Pastu and outreach to DT on that. So I have just a couple comments this evening. I'll start by saying that we talked about this a couple meetings ago. The yard waste collection is going to be extended by 1 week. It'll go through the week of December 13th. The same collection days for everybody as always. If it's Monday, they'll pick it up then. If it's Thursday, whatever day of the week is, remains the same. So it's only 1 week that we're going to be extending it. So again, the week of December 13th. As I always kind of talk, and the council members do as well, I've received some interest in one of our commissions, but I'm here to say that we're still looking for people that are willing to serve on the Tree Advisory Commission. If you have an interest in that and what that means to the city, you can either find an application on the city's website, but you can always call my office and or visit the webpage to read about why the council passed it. But you can call my office, and I'll be glad to discuss that with anybody who may have an interest in serving on there. As was mentioned by Councilman Felder and others, there's many activities that were ongoing here, and since the tree lighting was a wonderful event, I want to thank all the sponsors and supporters, the partnership with the museum, the RCA, in downtown. But the season goes all the way through the end of the year, and I ask people to continue to come down, view what's was displayed, and from the lights, but also downtown shopping and shop small. I know that the Downtown Monroe Business Network continues to have an activity Thursday evenings with the Santa in the Igloo, and please come down if you want an opportunity for your children, whatever, to visit there, but also visit all the stores and shops. So my last comment is just council has awareness of this, and meeting was tonight, but I'm just going to make a general statement that tonight in our adjoining township, in Monroe Township, their planning commission met regarding some provision center and adult use retail regarding marijuana. The lot is adjoining to city property. It also is adjoining to a park of ours and also residential. So we sent a letter of our concern regarding that. And we'll wait and see what the planning commission does, but council, you have that correspondence. I want you to know that there has been some outreach from the letter from the manager. I also called the township supervisor today to have further discussion as well. So once we get some additional information back on that, there'll be an update, I'm sure, for council. But as that continues to move forward in the township, but yet directly impacts the residents here in the city when you talk about location, distance, and zoning. So those are my comments for the evening. Clerk Treasurer Lavoy.
Comment I have is the tax bills, the winter tax bills went out Wednesday, December 1st. They have not arrived in people's mailboxes yet, so the clerk treasurer's office is aware of that. There's really not a whole lot we can do at this point except, unfortunately, wait for the mail, which I know we've all spent a lot of time doing this year, but we're just going to have to do that a little bit more. The residents, however, that owe taxes have options. They can certainly go on monroemi.gov and access their bill that way. They're also free to contact the clerk treasurer's office, and we will either email them a bill or we can tell them the amount on the phone. So I'm sorry that they haven't arrived yet. It's really something that's a bit out of our control. They become a lien on the property on December 1st. I think some of the concern is that residents are anxious to pay. They're very concerned about the due date. And I just want to remind everyone that the due date is February 14th of 2022. So while some of you would like to pay before the end of this year, I completely understand that. We're here 8:30 to 4:30 to accommodate that. But there is still plenty of time before there's any penalty. So I just wanted to reassure everyone and let them know that the bills have been mailed. If any of you field calls from constituents, feel free to either take care of it yourself in answering that question or pass them along to me, and I'll be glad to work with them. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Clerk Lavoy. I just want to clarify my comment regarding the correspondence that was sent from the city to the Monroe Charter Township. The request was from the manager is to deny the application that was scheduled this evening before the planning commission. I'm sure it's done by now, as they get reports back, and the reason why is for the statements related to distance to our residents, but also ownership of the lots at hand. So before I go to Mr. Sell, see if he has any questions, I am going to make a comment. See that we have students here this evening from the middle college, and I usually do this. I think the Councilman Viney, so you get to stand up. So as those that have been at our last meeting and also at our work session, we've had students from the middle college, and your class that you're in is which class? Civics. And who's your instructor? Mr. Miller, right? And you may have an opportunity if you wish to speak or make any comments at the open public time, but I just want to recognize you here. Great program, the Monroe County Middle College, and opportunity for students in their civics class. They were to attend meetings. They've attended here. I know that some of the students have attended elsewhere, but it was really neat that at our capital improvements discussion that they were present, and they learned that we like a lot about trees, as one of them said. So, and I think that was a good thing. So thank you for being here. Mr. Sell, any comments from administration yourself?
I just want to say Vince Past 2 is on vacation. I hope he's having a great one, and he's expected back in the office next week.
Yes, and we'll have, I know there's going to be a healthy agenda come the next meeting as well. So thank you, Mr. Sell. At this time, if there's any comments from those present here this evening for citizens' comments, just read as I always do and remind everybody that wish to speak, be mindful of the rules of the chamber. You have 3 minutes to make your comments if you wish to do so. Please state your name and jurisdiction or residence. And at this time, we'll take any public comments from those present here this evening. And yes.
Colby, City of Monroe. On June 15th of 2020, when Katie Beth first presented the petition about the Custer statue, Councilman Felder suggested there be a conversation between Native people, particularly Potawatomi, Cheyenne, and Arapaho, various Custer historians, members of the county, state historical societies, as well as the Custer family. On June 20th of 2020, Graham Denton suggested that the City Council form a committee to bring members of the community together to discuss the situation. And later in that same meeting, Councilman Iko Angeli put forth the motion that, quote, the city partner with the County Museum, the National Park Service, Monroe County Community College, and Native American representatives on the development of a site master plan for the current site that fully explains General Custer's entire military career, end quote. And the entire council had voted yes on this motion. On August 3rd, August 17th, September 8th, Mayor Clark, you discussed that the committee was being formed and that outreach to partners was occurring. It was explained on September 8th that an ad hoc committee had been formed with the County Museum and the Historic Commission. 8 months after Iko Angeli's motion, we were informed that the committee, consisting of, quote, 5 white guys, Mr. Pestu, Mayor Clark, Mark Cochran, Andy Clark, and Brian Egan, decided to put out the RFQ to facilitate community discussion with regards to Custer's legacy and the monument. And we all know how that went. We thank you for your work. The consultant was chosen. We largely accepted, but, questioned the transparency of the process. And in response, everyone threw up their hands as if the process was never going to be watched carefully. On August 2nd, the meeting was stacked with older white people who decided they wanted to keep the statue, and as usual, people of color and other marginalized people attended, as we had for over a year at that point, and the RFQ was terminated. In that same time, the United Tribes of Michigan had passed a resolution in favor of relocating the statue from Monroe, and the National Congress of American Indians passed a resolution supporting removing all memorials to Custer across the entire U.S. Councilwoman Germaini said she seconded the motion to terminate the RFQ because she believes City Council could make a decision by itself. Many times the mayor said that the conversation's not over. So you've all acknowledged that what we have now is not good enough. So when will this be put on the agenda for action to be taken? Or when will you form a committee that will include Native American people? It's up to you to listen and take action, so I urge you to. And thank you, Councilman Vining, for mentioning the mask and hybrid thing. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Other comments from those present here this evening?
Hi, everyone. Katie Beth Davis, Monroe Charter Township. Even though I do live in the township, it is my hope that one day in the near future, within the next couple of months, that the city of Monroe will be in the district that I'm going to be running for. But I am back again today. It's the second to the last meeting of the year, and next month it'll be Martin Luther King Day again. And here we are back a year later, and along with the talk of the plaques for the Custer statue, there was also talk of updates to the bridge, possibly painting, fixing the lights. So I'm just also wondering where the city is with that. Also, we just got out of Native American Heritage Month, and the community college did put on a series of panels. It was disappointing that the majority of the city council did not attend, especially when there was a lot of education and perhaps maybe things that you could have learned to see why so many people would like the statue addressed. And since last month as well, the U.S. Senate unanimously approved our friend Charles Chuck Sams III to be the National Park Service's 19th director. So he is a tribal member of the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation, serving recently as its executive director. And we're hoping that even though we don't have any federally recognized Native Americans involved in the cities or county or battlefields decisions, that with some oversight that would be able to happen soon. So thank you for all that you guys do. Happy holidays to you and have a great night.
Other comments from those present here this evening? Name, address, please, or jurisdiction of residence.
Good evening, city council members, respected members. Your Honor, excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. Yeah, Richard Mcop, a resident of city of Monroe. First thing I would do is like to express my sympathy to the clerk, Miss Lavoie, for the loss of their family. Judge Lavoie had passed away yesterday. It was really sad. We did a lot of work with him through the Historical Museum and the Society, and we're sure sorry about that. Thank you. And the other part, the lady who just preceded me indicated that there was a program sponsored by the Monroe County Community College relative to the Native American Heritage Month, and they had a number of virtual programs. I attended all of those except for one, I think, and they create a narrative. This narrative has taken things out of context, and you hear that, but that's about it. If the whole story were told, people could have a different idea. Then recently, a number of people appeared were presented on the National Public Radio, NPR program. We listened to that. And again, this narrative, the same narrative keeps coming up over and over again about Custer and the monument, how horrible he was, how terrible it is. And in one of those particular programs, and I took great exception to it, an individual called the city of Monroe racist. They called the county of Monroe racist. I don't believe that. I never have and I never will. So with that, I wish you all the best for a good holiday season. And just to put everything in perspective, listen to what they say, but go back and take a trust. You trust them, but you verify the trust. Thank you very much.
Other comments from those present here this evening? Yes, sir.
I have a question, if that's all right.
Sure.
So earlier, this man over here mentioned how when you have a city contract, it usually goes through you guys. I would just like to ask, how exactly does that work? Like, how exactly does one set up a business or building contract in the city of Monroe? And by the way,
so just for the record, we need your name and
Keegan Schmidt, residents of city of Monroe, Michigan.
Okay, thank you, Keegan. Well, I don't know if Councilman Michelangelo, it wasn't so much about setting a business up, but it was about we have contracts that we sign with businesses, and because we are using other companies to manage those. His point, which is well taken, is they would sign. We were signing their contracts, and the councilman's point is we should be having them signing contracts to the city to hold them to our expectations. While they may be the same, we have some other manners in which we can ensure that things are done the way we wish them to be done. I'm not sure if there's something further, Councilman?
That's a good summary.
Yeah. Okay. So if you owned a business that was in construction, we will put a bid out for the, whatever one of the 14 streets we did last year, and you have a construction company that says, I do that kind of work, and maybe I'll bid on 1 or 2 or 3 of those, or maybe just one, and come in, and then if you're the low bidder and meet all the qualifications, and that's what we did earlier on the responsible bidder ordinance we talked about, putting criteria in so business will be kind of pre-qualified. We know they meet the labor standards. We know they're going to meet pay standards. We know they're going to not be in litigation for improper work. All these things were in that program. So you're that company, and you come and say, here's my bid, and if you're successful, and we then sign the contract to have you do the work. And so we have, Mr. Lewis isn't here, he could go on about all of our contracts we have, but we usually have similar contractors that bid, but not always. Like tonight, we had a new company that Mr. Cochran talked about to help do the redevelopment of that property because the work is abundant, and some of our locals are very busy with architectural work. So the work that person is coming from Ann Arbor. It was the bidder that was of interest. I don't know if that answers your question, but the idea is we're trying to manage the work. We're trying to get more involved to manage it internally versus just handing it over, and yet still want to progress forward is to make sure we do all our projects. Is that helpful?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you very much, good sir.
Thank you. Other comments from those present here this evening? Seeing no comments, a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Councilman Lamore, supported by Councilwoman Germaini to adjourn. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Felder? Yes. Whitman? Ike Angeli?
Yes.
Vining? Germaini?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes.